Well, folks, buckle up, because today's deep dive is a wild one. We're talking about TikTok, or should I say, the absence of TikTok.
Yeah, gone. Just like that.
As of yesterday, January 18th, 2025, the app that's practically taken over the world is officially banned in the US. And the timing, well, it's almost too perfect. It happened mere hours before a new president, a certain Mr. Donald Trump, takes office. Talk about a parting shot from the outgoing administration, huh?
You gotta admit, the timing is pretty remarkable.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's front page news everywhere. We've got articles from AP, Forbes, even BBC chiming in, all trying to make sense of this digital drama.
And the million-dollar question is, will TikTok really disappear from the U.S.? Or is this just the first act in a long, complicated play?
Exactly. That's what we're here to unpack today. And to help us navigate this messy situation, I've got with me, the expert on all things tech and geopolitics.
Hey, it's a pleasure to be here. This whole thing is a fascinating case study, really. I mean, you've got this hugely popular app owned by the Chinese company ByteDance.
Right, ByteDance, that's the name we need to remember.
And they're caught right in the middle of this global tug of war. And then, to spice things up, you throw in a presidential inauguration happening tomorrow. Talk about a recipe for chaos.
It's like a reality show, but with real-world consequences. Now, I know a lot of our listeners are pretty tech-savvy, but for those who might need a little refresher, can you give us the, TikTok 101? How did this app become such a giant, and why is it suddenly facing this ban?
Okay, so TikTok's rise, it's been meteoric, like shooting star stuff. It's smashed through all these cultural barriers, becoming the first Chinese platform to truly capture the West, especially here in the U.S. And a big part of its success, the algorithm.
Yeah? Algorithm, right? That's what everyone's talking about.
It's like magic, almost. It figures out exactly what you're into, serves you content you didn't even know you wanted to see. Suddenly, you're hooked.
It's like having a personal DJ for your entertainment.
Right.
And the videos, they're so short, so snappy, perfect for our, well, let's face it, dwindling attention spans.
You got it. TikTok tapped into this desire for quick, bite-sized content, something you can consume on the go. And the result? Boom. It took the world by storm. No wonder platforms like Instagram and YouTube felt the heat, scrambling to create their own versions, reels and shorts.
But even with all that effort, they couldn't quite dethrone the king, could they?
Nope. TikTok held its ground. But then there's the other side of the story, the one that's got everyone a little spooked. The whole China connection.
Yeah, that's the dark cloud hanging over TikTok's success. The question of data security, potential access by the Chinese government, those concerns have been swirling for a while.
And it's not just paranoia, Chinese law actually requires companies to share data with the government if they're asked. That's got U.S. officials pretty nervous, to say the least.
I mean, can you blame them? Imagine the Chinese government getting its hands on the data of millions of American TikTok users. Talk about a national security nightmare.
Right. It's a scary thought. And we've seen this play out before, haven't we? Remember, back in 2020, the first Trump administration tried to ban TikTok.
Oh, yeah, I remember that whole debacle. It caused quite a stir, but ultimately fizzled out.
It did. But those worries, they never went away. Then, in 2024, things got real serious. The U.S. Congress passed this law, the seller ban law, basically an ultimatum for ByteDance.
Sell TikTok to an American company or face a nationwide ban. And that deadline was set for, wasn't it January 19th, 2025?
Yep, tomorrow. Talk about a tight deadline. To add fuel to the fire, the Supreme Court upheld that law just last week. So TikTok's future is hanging by a thread. The outgoing Biden administration said they wouldn't enforce the ban, so it's all on Trump now.
And here's where it gets really interesting, right? Because the same guy who was pushing for a TikTok ban back in 2020, Donald Trump, now seems to be, well, a bit of a TikTok fan.
That's quite the turnaround. The guy's known for being unpredictable, but this is a whole new level. There were even reports saying he might delay the ban, give them like a 90-day extension to figure things out.
Wow, a 90-day reprieve. Now that would be a twist. But let's say, hypothetically, a sale does happen. Who are we even talking about? Who could buy a behemoth like TikTok?
That's the billion-dollar question. Names like Elon Musk and Frank McCourt have been thrown around, but it's not as simple as just writing a check.
I imagine there are a few complications involved in selling an app that's, well, basically a cultural phenomenon.
Oh, tons. For starters, China's not exactly thrilled about letting go of TikTok's secret sauce. The algorithm. The thing that makes TikTok, well, TikTok.
Trying to sell TikTok without its algorithm is like trying to sell a car without an engine, right?
Exactly. And then there's ByteDance themselves. They've been fighting tooth and nail to hold on to their golden goose. They see it as this massive success story, a symbol of their global reach.
So we've got a standoff. The U.S. government wants them to sell, China is hesitant, and ByteDance is digging in their heels. It's a high-stakes poker game, and we're all watching to see who blinks first. But what about the users? The millions of people who scroll through TikTok every day, the creators who built their careers on it. What happens to them if the app goes dark?
That's a great point and honestly a heartbreaking one. For a lot of creators, TikTok isn't just an app, it's their livelihood. They rely on it for income, building their brand, connecting with their fans. A ban could be devastating for them.
It's like pulling the rug out from under them, isn't it? And what about the regular users, the folks who just love watching and sharing videos? What are their options if the app's gone?
Well, there's always the VPN route. Virtual private networks, they mask your location, make it look like you're browsing from a different country. But those come with their own set of issues, like slower internet speeds and privacy concerns.
So not exactly a perfect solution. Plus, imagine millions of people suddenly having to learn how to use VPNs just to access their favorite app. That's chaos waiting to happen.
It would be a digital mess, for sure. And then you've got the copycats to think about. You know, those apps that try to ride the wave of someone else's success.
Oh, right, like those TikTok but not TikTok apps.
Exactly. If TikTok disappears, you can bet there'll be a flood of new apps popping up, all trying to grab those users, those influencers, that sweet, sweet ad revenue.
It's a digital gold rush. And speaking of gold rushes, who stands to benefit the most if TikTok does bite the dust?
Well, the obvious winners would be Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts. They've already poured a ton of resources into their short-form video features. A TikTok exodus. That's a dream come true for them. Millions of users up for grabs. A chance to become the new king of the hill.
It's like a game of musical chairs, but with billions of dollars at stake. But let's step back for a second and think about the big picture here. Doesn't this whole situation set a pretty scary precedent? Banning a foreign app just because of where it came from.
It's a slippery slope, no doubt. It could embolden other countries to do the same, leading to a more fragmented internet where your access is determined by where you live and what your government decides. Not exactly the open, free internet we're used to.
It's a scary thought, for sure, and it raises so many questions about the future of global tech, the balance between national security and digital freedom.
Right. I mean, are we headed towards a world where the apps we use are dictated by politics?
Mm.
That's a whole other conversation, but one we definitely need to be having.
For sure. So we've got this ban hanging over TikTok, a potential sale that's more complicated than it seems, and a whole bunch of users and creators caught in the crossfire. It's a lot to digest, and honestly, it's hard to predict how this will all shake out.
It's true. This whole saga is a tangled web of tech, politics, and global power dynamics, and we're right in the middle of it.
But before we get too lost in the weeds, let's hear from you, the listeners. What are your thoughts on this whole TikTok ban? What stands out to you? What are your hopes, your fears? We want to hear your perspectives as we continue to untangle this messy, messy situation.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground already. You know, the backstory of this TikTok ban, the main players involved. But now I want to dig into the arguments themselves. Like, why are people for the ban and why are some people totally against it? Because it's not exactly black and white, is it?
No, not at all. It's one of those things where both sides have valid points.
Yeah.
You know, so on the one hand, you have the national security argument. And it's not exactly a secret that the Chinese government has a bit of a reputation when it comes to internet censorship and surveillance.
Right, like they're not exactly known for their hands-off approach to the internet. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fear is that TikTok it's got over 1 billion users worldwide, right?
Right.
And the amount of data it collects. It could basically become this tool for the Chinese government to, gather intelligence on American citizens. And it's not just like what you post, right?
Right.
This thing knows where you are, what you watch, what you like, who you talk to. I mean, it's a lot of information.
It's like the ultimate digital footprint, isn't it? And that's what's got people on edge.
Yeah. I mean, the concern is that this data could end up in the wrong hands, that the Chinese government could access it either by asking ByteDance directly or maybe even through some kind of backdoor in the app itself. I mean, it sounds like a spy movie, right?
Totally. But then you've got the other side, the folks who are saying this ban is like a total overreach, that it's an attack on free speech. And they make some good points too, right?
They do. I mean, their argument is that there's no concrete proof that TikTok has actually done anything wrong. No one's shown that they've handed over user data to the Chinese government. So to them, this ban is based on what ifs and fear, not actual evidence.
It's like guilty until proven innocent, almost.
Yeah, kind of. And their other point is that banning an app just because of where it comes from sets a dangerous precedent. Like, what's to stop other countries from doing the same thing? It could lead to this, like, super fragmented internet where governments get to choose which apps their citizens can and can't use based on, I don't know, political reasons, economic reasons. I mean, that's not exactly the free and open internet we're all used to.
It's like the internet's turning into this digital battleground, isn't it? With governments and tech companies all vying for control.
Yeah, and caught in the middle are, well, all of us, the users.
So it's this clash between like national security on one side and free speech on the other. And it's a tough one because both sides have valid concerns.
It's a classic dilemma, right? Like, how do you balance protecting sensitive data with the right to express yourself online? Especially when you're talking about an app as big and influential as TikTok.
Okay, so let's just say, for the sake of argument, that the ban does happen. Poof, TikTok disappears. What does that actually look like? Like, what happens next?
Well, first off, I don't think ByteDance would just roll over and take it.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a lot invested in the U.S., a ton of users here, and they've made it pretty clear they're not going to go down without a fight. So legal challenges? Oh, yeah, those are coming for sure.
So we're talking lawsuits, court battles, appeals. This could drag on for, like, years.
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely. This wouldn't be a quick resolution. But even while that's all happening, the app itself would probably become unavailable in the U.S., at least officially.
Meaning you wouldn't be able to download it from the app stores and internet providers would be blocking it. So for most people, it would be game over, right?
Not necessarily. Because here's the thing about the internet. People are resourceful. Like, whenever there's a restriction or a ban, people figure out ways around it.
Like they get creative.
Totally. And in this case, the most likely workaround would be VPNs, those virtual private networks we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. So you could make it look like you're browsing from, I don't know, Canada or something where TikTok's still allowed.
Yep, that's the idea. But, like we said before, VPNs come with their own issues. They can slow down your internet speed, and there are some privacy concerns too.
So it's not exactly a perfect solution. And honestly, can you imagine millions of people suddenly trying to figure out how to use a VPN? It would be chaos.
Oh, yeah, a total digital mess. And then on top of that, you got to factor in the copycats.
Yeah.
We're already seeing apps trying to be like the next TikTok. If the original goes away, well, there's going to be a whole flood of new ones popping up, all trying to fill that void.
Right. Everyone wants a piece of the pie. It's like the Wild West of social media. So if TikTok does disappear, who wins? Who loses? It's hard to keep track of all the players here.
Well, the obvious winners, at least in the short term, would be the platforms that are already trying to compete with TikTok. You know, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, those guys.
They're already in the game, so they've got a head start.
Exactly. If TikTok's gone, they've got a chance to grab a ton of new users, maybe even become the new king of short-form video.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got the TikTok stars themselves, the influencers who've built their whole careers on this platform. For some of them, losing TikTok could be a huge blow.
It's like their stage just disappeared, right?
Yeah, and that's their income, their connection with their fans. But for others, it might be an opportunity to, branch out, try new things, leverage their following on other platforms. It would definitely be interesting to see how they adapt.
Yeah, a real shakeup of the influencer landscape. But let's zoom out for a second and think about the bigger picture. What kind of message does this ban send to the rest of the tech world?
That's a really important question, and I think it's one that's got a lot of people in the tech industry worried. Because if the U.S. can ban TikTok, well, other countries could start doing the same thing.
So it's like a domino effect?
Yeah, potentially. And that could lead to this really fragmented internet where innovation is stifled and people's access to information is controlled by governments.
And it's not just about the apps themselves, right? It's about the relationship between governments and tech companies. Like, who has the power here? Who gets to decide what we can and can't access online?
Right. It's a power struggle, for sure. And it's one that's only going to get more intense in the future, I think.
So we've talked about the ban, the potential fallout. But remember, nothing's set in stone yet. There's still a chance that, I don't know, maybe the ban gets delayed or ByteDance manages to sell TikTok to an American company.
There's always that possibility. And even if none of that happens, the incoming Trump administration might decide to take a totally different approach. Maybe they'll negotiate a compromise with ByteDance, something that addresses the security concerns without completely killing the app.
Right, so there's still hope for TikTok.
I wouldn't say hope exactly, more like uncertainty. We just don't know how this is going to play out.
It's a real nail-biter, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But while we're all waiting to see what happens, it's important to remember that this isn't just about an app. It's about the future of the internet. It's about freedom of expression, access to information, the balance of power in the digital age. It's a lot bigger than TikTok.
It is. It's about the kind of digital world we want to live in. And that's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Okay, so we've explored the arguments, the potential consequences, the uncertainty hanging over TikTok's future. But now we want to hear from you. What do you think will happen to TikTok? What would you like to see happen? We want to hear your thoughts as we continue to unpack this whole saga.
Welcome back to our TikTok deep dive. We've gone through the history, the arguments, the potential chaos, but now the big question. What's next? What's the future hold for TikTok? Well, like we've been saying, it's a bit of a guessing game, right? But let's try to game it out a bit. We've got a few scenarios, each with its own set of consequences.
Okay, lay them on me. What's the most dramatic one?
All right, so the most dramatic one is a ban actually going through, like full stop. No more TikTok in the U.S.
Poof. Just like that, over 170 million users left hanging.
It would be a huge shock, that's for sure.
Right.
But it wouldn't be like flipping a switch, right?
Right.
I mean, ByteDance, they're going to fight back legally for sure.
Right, lawsuits, appeals, the whole 9 yards, so it wouldn't be an instant thing.
Exactly. But in the meantime, yeah, the app would probably get pulled from app stores and U.S. internet providers would have to, block access. So it would be this weird limbo period.
And like we talked about before, even with a ban, there's always workarounds, right? VPNs, those copycat apps trying to steal users.
Oh yeah, the internet always finds a way. But even with those, a full-on ban would hurt TikTok's U.S. operations big time.
So, scenario one. Ban goes through. Legal battles rage, users scramble. What else we got?
Okay, so another possibility, the ban gets delayed. Like, imagine a ticking time bomb, but someone hits the snooze button.
So they get a little more time, but the threat's still there. Wouldn't that just make things even more uncertain?
Oh, absolutely. It wouldn't fix the problem, just, postpone the fight. But maybe it gives ByteDance enough time to, work out a deal, make some changes to appease the U.S. government. Who knows?
Kicking the can down the road, basically. So that's two scenarios. What's the third option?
The big one, the sale. TikTok gets bought by a U.S. company.
Ah, yes, the sale. It's been the talk of the town. We've heard all the rumors. Elon Musk, Frank McCourt, even Mr. Beast. Crazy, right?
It would be a wild twist for sure. But let's be real. A deal like this, it's messy. It's not just about money. It's about politics, about who controls what.
Yeah, like we said, China's not exactly thrilled about giving up TikTok's algorithm. And ByteDance, they want top dollar for their baby.
Exactly. So even if a sale does happen, it doesn't mean everything's hunky-dory. The new owner might change things, the algorithm, the rules, the whole vibe of the app. Who knows?
So even with the sale, TikTok's future in the U.S. is still up in the air.
Big time. 3 scenarios, all with question marks. Honestly, I have no clue which one's most likely. Too many moving parts, too many people playing the game.
It's like a game of chess, but with the whole internet watching. And we're all kind of pawns in this game, aren't we? Users, creators, even the tech giants. It's a reminder that things are changing fast.
Yeah. The internet is not the Wild West it used to be. Governments, they're trying to control things more and more. And we got to pay attention because it affects all of us.
This whole TikTok thing, it's a wake-up call, right? It's not just about one app. It's about the future of the internet itself.
Exactly. It's about national security, digital freedom, global power dynamics.
Yeah.
It's about what kind of online world we're building and who gets to make the rules.
Heavy stuff. So, as we wrap up this deep dive, I guess the takeaway is this. Stay informed, stay engaged, and don't be afraid to ask questions. Because this story, it's not over yet.
Not by a long shot.
Yeah.
And thanks for joining us on this wild ride. It's been it's been quite the deep dive.
That's for sure. And to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep thinking, keep the conversation going, because the future of the internet, it's in all our hands.